of the Real Mobile Podcast. Today, I say this every single time. Today's going to be a special one. Every single one of them is special because I'm strategic in how I choose my guests. I'm strategic in how the conversations that I have with them, So yeah, every single one of them is special, and I always leave with more knowledge, not just about the conversation we're having, but more knowledge about myself and the guests themselves. Majority of them, I've known them for a very long time, but then in that conversation, I'm just like, oh, really? Is this really you? So I'd like to welcome my friend, Katlego, aka Tito.
Yes, sir.
AKA Mr. Big Money. I'm curious as to where big money comes from because Lee always uses it. And even to me when you respond, you're like, yeah, big money. I'm like, dude.
You know, that phrase, literally, the first time you heard it, it came from Kevin Hart.
Oh.
But we started using it in a way that when you say bet money, you give your word. So basically, you can say, no, bet money, bet on something that is valuable. When you say bet money, means that I got
you. Oh, wow.
I got
that
you.
Is, for me, when I heard like, no, he's just manifesting big money.
No, people misunderstand it actually. It's we use it in that way to say, man, I don't got it. No, man. I need 1, 2, 3. No, bet money.
Hectic. That is so dope.
I got you.
That is it's like a nice personal thing for you and your friends.
And the reason why I bet money is that people actually value money. So we translate it so that you can actually
value my word.
Value your word.
Ha!
That is why.
It's just 2 minutes.
That is
2 minutes in.
That is why. Thought I should throw that in there.
Oh my god, that is so dope. I honestly didn't know. I just heard it around and Lee calls you Mr. Bet Money. So I was just like, oh, what is this about? What
Bet money. Bet money.
So we've been friends with Katlego since primary school.
Yes, man.
Imagine.
It's been ages.
We were in the same primary school. My dad used to take all of us to school.
Yes.
It was just... Yeah, it was crazy. We started listening to music essentially together, your Eminems and 50 Cents and all those things. We're jamming all together in the car. And here we are, I don't know how many years later, 20-some years later. We've grown. And, we've grown personally, we've grown professionally, we've grown religiously as well, which is one of the things one of the main things we're talking about today. Because we were also all in the same church. We're also serving in the church, like everything. We were there almost like a money to money, really busy. So do you want to introduce yourself in a particular way, sir?
Not entirely, but Katlego Ngake, as you say, they call me Mr. Big Money all day, every day. No yada, no problem.
You got it, boo! You got it! Thank you I know you are actually the first guy to say, I want to be on that podcast. Get me on that.
Definitely.
And I said a conversation that we're going to focus on, but I want to know now, there must have been something on your heart or that you felt like, this is a great platform to engage and share on certain conversations or whatever. What was that in particular?
Number one, nepotism, because I know you. Let's get that out the way.
Love it. And we can.
And number two, it was the topics you were discussing is that a lot of people find it very tough to be vulnerable in the climate that we're in. So you're discussing things that are close to people's hearts. So for me, I've always valued that because I've always seen it as true strength, being able to be vulnerable and open up on what you're going through, your perspectives of life. Because ultimately as well, we're living in a generation or an age whereby if I disagree with you, number one, people think that I hate you.
Facts.
People are conscious and direct about misunderstanding each other because we do not hold similar views. Or our view set can change because obviously we grow. And within growth, certain paradigms you might have change because of your life experiences. That's why I wanted to be here and maybe contribute to that conversation, that growing conversation.
I love that. And one thing I've realized, and it wasn't planned, the past, including this one, the past 3 weeks, I've had men only. And the first guest was a man. And for me, I love it so much because not only indirectly am I creating a platform for men to literally be heard, but it is great for men to willingly say, I'm keen, I'm come talk, and they are open about their emotions, they're expressive, and they get to share exactly how they feel about certain things, you know. So for me, it was a great thing. And when you're talking about sharing views and understanding, and that if I don't agree with you doesn't mean I hate you. I think there's something similar that's happening with the Dave Chappelle show with Netflix, that it doesn't mean if he makes jokes or speaks about this particular thing, he's hating on you. It's still an opinion and an expression from his side.
And it's an opinion whereby it's, if you look at that comedy special specifically, his sole purpose was to indicate that you're going to misunderstand me regardless of what I'm saying.
And exactly that.
And
that happened.
exactly the backlash he got, the so-called backlash that he got, it was exactly
what he anticipated.
It was exactly that. And for me, that is, let me try and rephrase it. I was going to say that is stupid, but I feel as if that is a bit of a harsh word. That is dangerously deceptive, because now I cannot raise my view, because even free speech is being impeded on. I cannot literally raise my voice. There's no free
speech anymore.
The only way I'll raise my voice if I agree with you. So if I don't agree with you, I cannot raise my voice. I have to keep quiet.
So that is, for me, that is very sad. And I find myself, because I'm very open for the most part on this platform and what we're going to talk about today. So I try my best to, almost with every conversation, just give a heads up for it. Our opinions, and we try to give them from a very knowledgeable place. What the knowledge we have and the experience we have from what we're saying, and we don't expect people to come and, I don't want someone to come fight me for the opinion I'm sharing, you understand? I'm not saying it to fight you for what you practice and what you believe in. And sadly, that's what we have been forced into, that in my opinion, I must still justify why I'm saying this. I must still give a warning of why I'm putting this out. Like, free speech is literally kind of supported by cancel culture. We're not free speech anymore, but right under free speech is cancel culture. So you always on the edge as to, is what I'm saying right or not?
Exactly. It reminds me of a tweet that I saw. A person was saying, no, I do not like oranges. So that means you hate oranges, etc., etc. And
that's not what they say.
That's not what I'm saying. I do not prefer oranges as my favorite fruit.
So we also were very quick to fight and put words in people's mouths,
exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Without understanding full context of what they're saying. Another thing people like to do is that they read the headline instead of the contents of the article. So they literally 100%. Run with the headline instead of reading the context of the article.
There's a video I watched yesterday. Shan Budi, her and her husband put up a video, and she was talking about how she got chlamydia, and because when they started her marriage, they were talking about open marriage. So the way they were placed, people think she got chlamydia because she was in an open marriage. And the husband said, if you guys took the time to watch both videos, you'll realize that the context is not the same. The information is very different. And also it was in saying that, so now people can't openly speak up about their issues or what they're going through because you're going to shame them. It's the same with Asha. It's like he can't own up and speak about it because you're going to shame them. But then you go around and telling people, speak your truth, live your life freely. Like
that does not make sense. That will never make sense to me. I still struggle with that concept till this day.
Anyway, we went into deep. How are you?
No, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm loving life. I'm beginning to love life again, you know?
That's good. After a tough few months.
Yeah, after a tough few months. Yeah. To say tough is an understatement.
It's crazy how, and I could maybe say the last 3 to 5 months, that's where things were just like crumbling for a lot of us, you know? And having to come back to that and understanding that each person, for one, the world is going through their own stuff since last year. We all have our shits, granted. But now you have all these happening to you all at once. And, you know, how do you come back from that mentally?
One of the few things that I decided to do personally because of what I went through, and it's something I'll touch upon later, is that I decided to feel the full context of my emotions, to allow myself to go to that place where I accept what actually happened to me so that I can just start with my recovery process. If you look at any injury that is physical, you go through a rehabilitation process. Understand, if you hinder that rehabilitation process, you risk further injury in that part. So I decided, let me take my emotions and apply the same concept. And when I started doing that, it started unraveling. Even past traumas, you literally sit back and dissect, and you go to the root cause of what actually is actually bothering you.
Yeah.
So I started that, and to say the least, I started with a bit of meditation as well. That helps
a lot.
And last but not least, my favorite part of it, I gym regularly to get rid of the excess stress.
I wish I could gym. We all live in the gym, man. There's this group called G1G.
I know.
You know, like those dudes live in the gym every day. I can't. I don't know how, but anyway, each to their own.
Those the Iron Church, man. You gotta go pay your tithes one time.
Who got fair? I love that Iron Church. I love it. Oh, that's dope.
So it is, as much as it's cliche for exercise and release stress, but it does help because it releases positive endorphins after you do this, so you feel a bit better. Even though your body will feel sore, but basically you will feel a bit better, and then you take it from there.
My best way or my best form of exercise or favorite is hiking. See, there I can hike for 5 hours. It's so I don't want to go anymore. But when I'm done, I'm just like, shucks, I want to go back because you are revived, your energy is back, even though it's painful. But hiking for me is better than gym because like weightlifting and whatnot. I'll do yoga and hiking. That's my style.
It's still a form of exercise.
It is, but I prefer. Let me just walk up a mountain.
No, but it's exactly that. You do what works for you.
For you, yeah.
You know, some people prefer the weight work. Some people prefer hiking. Some people prefer dancing. But you do something that will work for you.
Yeah.
There's no method of one thing that there's no one set formula to get to an equation or answer.
True.
1 + 1 = 2. 4 divided by 2 = 2. So literally. I'm just saying. So what I learned for high school, what I learned from maths and how I apply it to life is exactly that. There's no one formula in doing something.
And we all have different formulas in work for us. Okay, Tito, I'm gonna ask you 3 questions. Well, I'm giving you 4. 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
I must actually find a title for this segment. I must segmentize every part of this thing and find a title for it. For now, it's just 3 questions. Well, today it's 4. You can have anyone fictional as your imaginary friend. Who do you choose and why?
One fictional. Must it be fictional or a celebrity?
Fictional.
Fictional. I love anime, so I would have Naruto.
Naruto!
Yes, ma'am.
Every time I hear Naruto, I just see people just going.
That's
I was watching a docu. What's this? Sierra Canyon. Yeah, the documentary of the basketball kids, about LeBron James and whatnot. And one of them did that, but was calling on Naruto or something else. So I would think it was the same thing.
I think that Dragon Balls, you're doing a Kamehameha.
That thing.
Exactly.
Okay, why Naruto?
I like his personality. He has a never die attitude. He has an ability to bounce back from setbacks, even though they're extreme and they are very difficult to bounce back from, but he manages to bounce back from each and every single time. And he comes back stronger and more dedicated. And the one thing that actually stands out for me with him is that he loves people, and I love people too. So I'm a people's person. I still strongly believe that the true currency of life is relationships and time. So people. So relationship, you need to value your relationships.
That's so powerful.
That is why.
That is so powerful, and it sets a good. You have a strong mindset in that. You know that you can't be deterred in a lot of things. So even if you fail, it's good with failures. Well, even if you fail, you bounce back and you become good again. I like that, Naruto.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
You know, that's a very difficult question because my dad was a manager. I was like, So I
Doesn't
never,
matter for what.
I don't know what, but I never actually specified
Oh my God.
what
Yeah.
I wanted to be because my dad was a manager. So that's why. So I wanted to be a manager.
And now, what are you now?
Now, by the grace of God, I'm a co-owner of a company.
Lovely.
Rooted Craft Brewery.
Craft brewery. Me, I'm gonna plug my people here, right? So if I have like Katlego Ngake was here not so long ago, he has your media, which is his own media network. You're here, you have your own brand. So dude, if I'm featuring my friends here, I'm plugging your business, okay? So come.
Much appreciated.
And I actually wanted to ask you if you could bring rooted beer. I thought of it only when you arrived, which was very silly, but it's fine. You're here
I'm
now,
here, what matters?
so we have access
The
to
substance,
you.
the substance matters, you know. The
There
substance
we go.
matters.
So we have full access of you here, so it's fine. We can easily get that. Manager. So part of the reason why I put that question there is there's a podcast or episode I watched the other day on Oprah channel, and they were talking about how a child, and you can see it in a lot of movies as well, who like, as a child you have an idea of who you want to become, and it depends on what happens after that moment in a growing period, or what changes your mind. Is it someone hurting you? Is it maybe a new growth development? But in most instances, it's always something negative that happens to a kid that changes your perspective of what you wanted to be and was so positive, you know? So for me, with that, I look at it, I learn to understand people a lot more for the decisions they make and who they are, what they do, and whatnot. It's just like, okay, so what happened to you? Why did you become this way? And it would be so amazing if a lot of us could be able to interact with one another like that.
That's true. For me, what changed? I like that. What changed was that obviously for me it was growth. Most important, like I said, I just said manager. I don't know.
What you were going to manage.
What I was going to manage, you know. So one thing I would like to add is that at least now I'm at a place whereby I own my own company. But at the same time, I learned a lot in management of people.
And relationships. Yeah.
So I would say that I became a manager of relationships. Holla at me. But anyway.
Mr. Big Money.
Mr. Big Money.
Come on.
So, but anyway, growth and obviously the context of how I grew up. I grew up in a place where my dad passed away when I was young, obviously. And I was raised by my mother. Then
hi Mama Emmy, if you watch this.
Then obviously I got introduced to RAM, and RAM actually shaped our paradigm and actually saying, hey, instead of going in a specific route, why don't you create your own path?
Yay, that man.
So that still is the guiding light of my life and the philosophy. I tell people every day is that decision making is very powerful. Don't just make decisions. So I got to a place where I realized you can create with your decisions. So now I'm a creator.
Damn. My people always have some deep things to say. Very early into these things. That is powerful though. Okay, third question. Have you ever completed anything on your bucket list? If you have a bucket list.
Yes,
what?
Definitely.
I don't have.
I went overseas,
yeah!
man. I went overseas.
Thailand. Oh man.
Me and my boy Bibi were like, and funny story.
Let's
Funny story. Bibi, I'm mentioning this story. My bad, bro.
Sorry, bro.
What happened was that initially we were supposed to go with our then girlfriends at that time. We were going to propose. And he was like, no, bro, you stole my idea. I'm like, bro.
And you were both going to go do it there?
In Thailand.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, but anyway, life happened and we were like, nigga, we still going to Thailand.
Two men party, we out here.
We went to Thailand and we ticked it off the bucket list.
That is so dope. I need to create a bucket list. I think maybe I do have indirectly, or I haven't structured it, but I need to create a sort of bucket list. That is so dope. I remember that trip. That was very, very nice. Are you a traveler or a homebody?
I'm somewhere in the middle.
You're somewhere. I feel like you're more of a traveler.
Yeah, I like traveling.
You like open road.
I like open road. This where
depends.
It's where I think. It's It's where I meditate. It's where I actually plan my life. It's where I actually have conversations with myself. So I like driving. I like the open road. But at the same time, I'm more of a person who's mindful of the spaces that I'm in. So I do not like intruding in people's spaces. Hence, I say, put me in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
Love it. That's dope. I think with traveling for me, I was an open road. I prefer when I'm alone.
Me too.
I love, especially the trip to Bloom. One man. Blasting music, either blasting music or it's pure silence. And you are one with your thoughts, and it's just like, wow.
That's me.
That is so
that is
amazing.
me.
But anyway, we
Yes,
move.
let's move.
Let's get into the reason. Once again, guys, please be mindful. These are our views and opinions, okay? So if you don't agree with it, that's fine. You don't have to. But I've never received any negative feedback on my platform so far, and I'm hoping it's not going to start now. And if you do have opposing opinions, be gentle with your delivery. So, yeah. Let's talk about the difference between religion and church. What is your view there? If you were to define the two from your perspective, what would you say separates the two?
Religion and God, or the church.
The church,
Religion.
the structure. Because I would say religion essentially is God. Because I was trying to figure, do I say God and the church, or is it religion and the church?
I would go deeper than that. There's a difference between spirituality, God, and the church, though.
Let's get it.
So, if hence I'm saying, and if we put more meat on the question,
Yeah.
what do you mean religion and God? I would say, for my understanding with that question, is that a lot of people do not have a relationship with God. They have a relationship with the church. They have a relationship with the structure of the church, but they do not have a personal relationship with God. So you might find that's why you have so much pastor worship, unfortunately. Let's put it out there. A lot of people worship their pastors more than they worship God. A lot of people are loyal to the brand of the church instead of being loyal to God. A lot of people will defend the church more than they will defend the word of God. Therefore, if you disagree with how the church is run or certain issues, because let's be real, the church is managed by people and people are imperfected, and we are in a process of evolution, constant evolution. Therefore, nobody's above criticism. And I mean constructive criticism. I don't mean the one where you throw stones.
Yeah.
I mean constructive criticism because you're part of the church, so you see what's actually happening. So even if you raise your opinions, people will actually say you're attacking the church, you're attacking God. Meanwhile, you are part of the building process of the church to facilitate a better movement.
They want everything to be positive.
They want everything to be positive. And in life, one thing I have a pet peeve of, I was telling a friend, is that you can never be too positive. Unfortunately, we have an oversaturation of positivity.
It's unrealistic.
It's unrealistic. As a person, you go through things. And sometimes you need to accept the reality of the situation in order to better the situation. So you might find within the church context as well, when you find something, they dismiss it as offense. And in my
they move you away. Whatever title you had in the church, they kind of shift you.
No, they shun you. And in my 29 years of living, if people leave the church or if people decide to vacate the church because of the same reason, then there's something wrong. Something needs to be addressed.
Sure. So my reason for questioning that is because I stopped going to church in probably 6-7 years now. And part of the reason why is because I was essentially starting to have issues with the people and the structure itself, with how it's being run. Even if it's not the one at the top, but the management in between.
I can relate.
You understand? We grew up in the same church. Literally, we were all children's church ministry you're serving. Arts ministry you're serving. Home cell on Wednesdays. This and this. We were there almost every day on tours and. And then you grow up and you realize, but I wasn't serving God all along. It feels like I was serving the structure and the people. Because now, the teachings, certain things I was taught there, people are selective as to what should apply. based on the Bible. Primary example, how did God turn water to wine?
Mm-hmm.
But we're just like, no to alcohol, it's bad. If you're a Christian that drinks, no, no, no. And I'm sorry I'm using that tone, I'm really not being smart, but this is how I speak. I'm very sorry, I'm not trying to be smart, but it's that thing of, as individuals, we become selective, and as a church, we become selective as to what we deem correct and wrong from the Bible, or what we want to focus on and emphasize more in the Bible. Everything else, again, it doesn't, you don't teach it as much, you know?
With that, people, like you said, people are selective. The very same Bible literally says that the God looks at the heart. Yeah, God looks at the heart. Your righteous acts are like filthy rags in His sight. Your good works, rather, are like filthy rags in your sight. Meaning that He's always scanning the contents of your heart more than anything else. And Jesus later elaborated in Matthew to say that love your neighbor as you would love yourself. So people become selective of the context of which you use it. That very scripture that you mentioned, that He turned water into wine. Life is about balance. It's about give and take.
True.
You understand? It's about enjoyment, but it's about responsibility too. Anything that you do in an equal measure becomes potentially dangerous for you, even if it's positive, even if it's negative. It becomes dangerous for you. So you need to, in business, when supply and demand meet, we call it an equilibrium. So you need to have an equilibrium of measure, if you may put it that way.
So when you speak like that, I think of this song called No Grey. Yeah, Jonathan McReynolds.
I can see
Gospel song. It says, God, I'm split in two. Part of me loves the world, the other loves you. So what should I do? I want to serve you, but I want to stay cool too. Essentially, in a nutshell, it says there's black and there's white. There's no gray. I love the song. The messaging is beautiful and anything else. I just can't fully agree with that, because that for me is, it feels like an unrealistic balance, where it depends the context you look at it and how, for your own personal life and how you take it in. But it's like, okay, if I don't choose this side, it means I'm here. I can't be balanced in between. And for me, that's what yin and yang is, the balance of good and bad.
Okay, let me start by saying a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So when it comes to that, you need to be mindful of being undecisive, being doubtful. So with that premise is that in life, if you look at Jesus' life particularly, the Pharisees of his day said he was unrighteous, right? Because what was he doing? He was amongst unrighteous people. That's where the flock was.
Yeah.
But his sole purpose was, I want to transform these people's lives. And he did that. The Pharisees never did that. They never transformed people's lives. In fact, they wanted to be worshipped more than they were be a part of the people. So when you say that, the context of it is that, for me, you need to live life. Be a part of the people, but do not let bad company corrupt good morals. Because literally the Bible literally also says that guard your heart with all your might, because out of it flows the issues of life. You need to be selective of who you allow in and around you. So I'm not saying chase people away, but be mindful
of who you have in your spaces.
Exactly. Be mindful.
So with that, I could go deeper and say, let's look at it from the perspective of parents, church, and kids. Let's look at it from that perspective, because I understand you fully, and that makes 100% sense. You know, you always have to, because they say the people you hang around are a representation of you, but sometimes you can go as far as, okay, I consume alcohol, does that make me a bad person? No, but certain individuals in the church, sometimes our parents themselves, they look at it like, why would you do this thing? It's devilish, or whatever the case is. So for me, and it's not just me leaving the church, it's leaving the church and now trying to figure out, who am I spiritually? You know, who am I spiritually? Who am I serving? Yes, I consume gospel music like crazy. That's my praise and worship. That's how I connect and recoup, or whatever the case is. but who am I serving? And the person I'm serving, how lenient is he or she to the life that I'm living and who I am? Am I supposed to be now? Because as a kid, you kind of a bit live in fear, kahore. If you do this, you're gonna get punished because God doesn't like it.
When you put it in that context, we earlier we talked about people looking at the headline instead of understanding the context.
The context.
Many people do not read their Bibles.
Mm.
Literally, if you look at all the David, Obolele Monomo, Itsuona Lemselba, Noah was a drunk. Paul killed people.
Okay, continue.
Solomon had gang women. Gang.
Yeah.
You understand? I can go on and on, but you literally see that people are not perfect. But the one basis that he said, in fact, I will elaborate on David. The Bible literally says that he was a man after God's own heart, even though he was not perfect. Meaning that you need to have your own individual relationship with God, number one. And you read your own Bible, you develop your own faith system, you develop your own relationship. You do not allow or determine or what's this word, man?
Don't be moved away. Don't be influenced.
Don't be influenced by another person's faith while not discovering your own. You understand? For me, that is essentially the number one thing I think Jesus was teaching when he was sleeping in the storm and the disciples were panicking and waking him up and saying, "Man, do you not care that we're going to drown?" He literally said, "Ye of little faith." Meaning that you don't have faith that we're going to go through. Meaning that you need to build up your own faith as well in order to go through storms as well.
Not depend on somebody else's.
You do not depend on somebody else's faith, because ultimately we know that if you depend on somebody too much, they might just let you down. So you need to build up your own faith.
That is so hectic. So when you mention these people that sin in the Bible, there's
Not sin, but
that have their flaws.
Let's
say correction, they had their flaws. For me, I feel like those parts of the Bible are not taught as much. They're not heightened as much because it's like, let's focus on the positive only and steer you away from actually wanting to do that.
I'll tell you why. Number one, the biggest thing is a form of control. The biggest thing. Because hence I say a lot of people do not read the Bible themselves. So
you listen.
You listen and you leave. But you do not read the context. And you do not read the Bible yourself. So it's easier to control and manipulate people like that. So it's unfortunate that something so beautiful has been used as a weapon, because now people literally, you can read, even if you read the statistics, people read less than they read before. You understand?
Yeah.
So that is worrisome. So if you see that statistic and if you're a deceptive person, you can literally say, nah, man, I can paint you red even though you're black, and I say you're red, you will believe that you're red.
Yeah. I mean, we can't even read a full caption on Instagram.
It's too long.
Too long. And that's how the biggest message is right at the bottom.
Right at the bottom.
And you miss it because you just wouldn't give yourself the time.
That is why. And secondly, we're becoming lazy as people to actually understand things. We're living in, Dave Chappelle calls it the age of spin. Sure. Whereby you do not know what's real and what is fake. So if you're living in that environment and that context, it's up to you to literally discover for yourself what is real and what is fake. So if you do not do that, you're going to end up finding yourself in places that you are not meant to be. Sure. Even if it's physical, spiritual, or emotional.
Yeah. I think more especially spiritual, it's easy to just be lured in spaces like that.
Exactly.
You know?
And as we put it, you talked about kids and parents and church, right? Most kids, when they begin to discover who they are spiritually, sometimes it contradicts what other parents know. And in most cases, parents, because of their superiority in the hierarchy of the relationship, they will try and force their opinions down instead of actually talking to
you.
having a conversation
to
with
understand,
you, to
yeah.
understanding. And literally, one of my favorite scripture is Proverbs 4,
Yeah.
verse 7. In all you're getting, get understanding. So you sit down with your kid and you get understanding as to how can you develop yourself from this, because ultimately that kid has a life outside of you.
Yeah.
So they will go into the world, they will discover things, and they will find out information. In fact, we're living in the age of information.
True.
Anything that you want is ready in the
There.
palm of your hand. Even if it's misinformation, you can read up on it. So they will have a lot more questions, so that you need to actually guide them. And if they have different beliefs, then you need to understand why and how did that come about.
And support it, at least.
And support it. And support. The biggest thing that you can offer a person is, for me, I've always said the biggest blessing or the biggest flex you can give a person is support.
Sure.
We are currently lacking support as an individual, more so emotional support. People are supporting the aesthetic of what something looks like instead of the substance of what the thing is. People will see you drive a car, they'll see you buy a house, they'll automatically deem you successful, right?
Not knowing
but they
how.
will not know the contents of your life, meaning that I might look like as if I'm successful, but I don't feel like as if I'm successful. And I'm actually at a place where I am not okay. So people forget this. Hence why, even if you look at the statistics of suicide inside the country, men kill themselves.
Well, we were talking about this a few years ago.
Literally. And that is for me still a shocking perspective, because now we are told talk. You understand? You are told boo. But when you speak, you find and says that I'm not getting emotional support. So why is it a must to speak?
Also, what saddens me is that that specific part of information is not put out publicly as much as the rate of women GBV and anything else is being put out. And I'm not comparing the two or whatnot, but there needs to be some sort of fairness, you understand, in saying, okay, we see this, we're supporting this, we're building this up. This is happening with our men. How do we help them overcome that? How do we help them deal with that?
Unfortunately, men have been pushed to the by side of society. It's been like that, and I want to emphasize black men as well. It's been like that. So you are taught to be highly
That's it.
be tough. You understand those sayings? You are literally brought up in a culture, and GBV is there. You know, it's real. Women go through a lot. Even men go through a lot. It's just that men prefer to keep quiet and suffer silently.
They swallow their pain.
They swallow their pain, and you can only swallow so much. But anyway, it's that you mentioned that is also saddening to me. You see that a lot of black males or black men or men in general are dying silently, but there matters, because one thing I see, hence why I deleted Twitter, is that people cannot come to a consensus whereby they agree on something. You might find that women raise their issues and men be like, no, but
what about us? It's always a defense, always a challenge.
Men raise their issues, women come, but you guys, we never get to a point whereby we listen to each other and we actually talk to each other and find out how can we solve these issues. Clearly, males and females have problems. Clearly, how do we solve this?
And that's toxic in itself, because it's like a relationship between friends or whatever. It's just two people speaking. I'm telling you my issues, and then you retaliate by saying, yeah, but nah, this, you need me. So you're not really empathetic in that moment to really listen and understand what this person is going through. So for me, with a group of people that do that, it kind of says a lot about how you're managing your personal relationships in different aspects of your life.
Facts. We tend to be too dismissive without listening to.
We listen to respond.
We don't listen to actually hear and communicate. We listen to respond. Waka, one time I thought I listened to me. Come and listen to me now. So you need to listen to me now and actually find out what are the contents of my heart, what am I saying, so that you can actually come to a consensus, so that we can go forward. I know life is about give and take and compromise at some points, but you reach those points through talking and understanding what the pressing issue is.
So, I don't know, like I'm trying to figure out how to ask this way. Would the root of all of this be religion or how we're raised in our households? Or it could be a bit of both, since majority of us, the influence in how we're raised was the church or religion itself.
You can say, I need to think about this one because it's actually a tricky one, because now there's a lot of factors you might say that they will contribute to that, because now if you look at the disparity and the stress levels, you cannot literally say from every household this is what happens, because you cannot pinpoint from one household to another.
Yeah, they're all
Even
different.
church. The only thing I would say is that the root cause of it is that obviously there's been a lot of, if you have unresolved trauma, let me put it that way, within one specific household, that literally manifests to the next person, because now they don't know better. They carry what they see inside the house and they go act it out. You know, so you literally you cannot act like what you don't know. If you think this is normal, even if it's not normal, you're gonna go outside and think this is normal.
Yeah.
Some people catch issues from the streets, unfortunately. They see people behaving a certain way, then they catch themselves and act in a certain way. So for me, you cannot really pinpoint as if
Exactly
it's religion or is it from the household. It's a very difficult question.
Hectic. Hopefully we'll be able to answer it one day. But even if we do answer it, like you said, it is from person to person. It's not one generic thing. Okay, so growing up in the church and serving in various ministries, what do you know now or have better understanding of that as a kid you felt, "Hore, with this particular thing, God is going to punish me or won't forgive me for this"?
I learned that people are people. People are people. People will forever have their agendas. So if you grow up, obviously you don't know any better at that point in time. You're still eager. But as you grow up and as you mature, you begin to see things in a different light, and you tend to realize, okay, people have their agendas. Am I part of their agenda, or am I a tool to get to their destination? And I found you meet genuine people. You understand? You meet genuine people out that will build you up and actually build your confidence and actually stay you in your strengths and weaknesses. You say, man, you're good in this. Try this, go that way, you know? But you still get to a point where you realize there are people who hide behind the confines of the church, but their agendas are, how can I put it? I got to but they are vile. They don't necessarily care about you.
It's for their own personal gain type of thing.
Benefit. And you learn to actually exercise discernment in finding out who's for you actually and who isn't. That's what I learned. Also, even the positive things that you learn. I learned how to address people, how to have respect, you know, the work ethic that goes behind actually building certain things. I learned from those concepts. But that one with being a tool and not being able to sympathize and empathize with people and not being a number, because we are so caught up in actually becoming something that you think that becoming something emphasizes numbers. You hear it in whether you're in corporate, whether you're in business, what are your numbers like? So you end up becoming a number.
You lose the human factor,
You lose the human factor. And if you lose the human factor, for me, you lost everything. Personally, that is my opinion. Because now, when you pass on, I don't necessarily care about your numbers then.
Yeah.
I care about the one thing that I'm not gonna get back. You.
And I missed it while you were here because I focused on the numbers.
The numbers. I mean, obviously, corporate vehicles are designed, companies are designed to actually, their lifeblood, their essence is based on monetary gain, on numbers. But the heartbeat of it is people.
And you forget it.
And you forget that what pumps the bloodstream? People, the heart. So obviously, in order for you to get the numbers, you need to make sure that the people are taken care of. So if the people are not taken care of, you cannot pump the numbers. So I found that as well within the various church structures I found myself. They focus on the numbers, but they neglected the heart. How can you neglect the one thing that is pumping life? They're pumping numbers into your organization.
Oh, Tito.
So
My God.
I will leave it there. I will, I will, I want
My
you to, I will leave it
God.
there. But
Yeah.
you people flourish in spaces whereby they feel appreciated, they feel loved. And I've never met anyone who's been in those spaces where they're appreciated and loved and necessarily care about the pay. That's
You
true.
do, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not saying it's not an important factor. It is very important because
But you don't make it your primary.
it's not a primary thing
fact,
because
yeah.
you literally are glad to wake up and go to an
And
environment
serve.
where you are appreciated.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at
So one thing for me that the church taught me, or my mother,
Mm.
my mother with the support of Kerele as well, most importantly my mother, is to serve with an open heart.
Yes.
And serve with an open heart with no expectations. That because I did this for you, you need to give back. And you grow in life and you serve and serve and serve, but then you forget who you. Sometimes serve with understanding, because some people are going to abuse
They'll take
your servant,
advantage.
but they'll take advantage of that. To a point where, for me, serving started feeling like, I don't know, it didn't feel natural anymore. I lost my urge to serve openly. Now I serve with anxiety. I serve with insecurity. Am I doing enough? Am I enough? Am I worthy of this? Am I, it's a lot of things. And that is not necessarily from the church, but the workspace itself, where people paint themselves to be godly, serving, and, but then they do the total opposite. And that can be so damaging.
You know, one thing I told CV was that the minute the minute your responsibility becomes a burden, you have a problem. So obviously, when you get to that level whereby you feel as if this is becoming a burden to me more than a responsibility, you have a problem. And literally, it's a warning sign to say you need to take care of this. You need to make sure that you back at that place. In some cases, it might mean that okay, I need to let go and find another space where I can flourish in. Literally, it's we are spirit beings at the end of the day, and people will say the Holy Spirit, atheists will say sixth sense,
Yeah.
whatever, but you are given a direction, you are given an unction as to this is not for you.
Yeah.
This is for you. And you feel it even when you work, when you are in corporate or wherever you are, when you're in a space whereby it's abusing your spirit will literally tell you to say no, you need to leave. And if you don't leave, the risk of that is that you're going to make that spirit down and you're not going to be aware of the situations that you need to pull yourself out of. It happens in a lot of spaces whereby you deal with people. I can name churches, I can name corporate, politics, whatever. So when you are, number one, as a leader, the one thing I normally tell people about leadership is that the basic understanding and the nuclear of leadership is knowing your flock.
Yeah.
Is making sure that your people are taken care of. The other things you will build, obviously, as you go along, but you need to make sure that you understand the context, the environment, and the space
that you're in,
that your flock is in individually. I'm not saying when you have a big organization, obviously that's where you delegate.
Yeah.
But if you are in context rather with the people, you need to understand that okay, I can sense Tsiyo's not fine. Tsiyo's not fine. But and her productivity went down. She was not like this. Most people, when they get that, they hammer instead of actually finding out the root cause of what's wrong. You might find, oh, I'm going through personal. It's something that you can talk about, but people miss that. And even
with the numbers, right?
The numbers, even within I will take it back to the church context. People miss that. One of the few pet peeves I had about that was that I've never actually spoken openly about this, but I will. Is that my aunt passed away, right? And instead of, I'm expecting to see people from the church that I serve with in the particular structure, but none pitched. You understand? This is a tough time for me and my family, and I'm always giving my heart and soul for this place, but I'm not receiving the intended support I thought that I would have. only to be asked about administrative issues that legit
Wow.
actually upset me. But I was young at the time. I couldn't actually express that to say,
I'm going through
I'm
this.
going through this. You hurt me in this context. So once you get older and unpack all of that, that's when you actually start making decisions that are sound.
Mm.
That is, I will leave it at that.
Cleo. Yeah. My intention wasn't to cry here, but literally you
Hey, my bad.
you hit a very sensitive nerve, in the sense that the past few days for me is just not even the past few days of mine. In me going through my healing journey
Mhm.
is when I started realizing, oh, my anxiety is it's a lot.
Mm.
And it's not, so then you read up symptoms, it's like, oh, I don't have anxiety, but it's like, it's not always in the physical,
Mm.
but my mind, I am so tired, not because I'm working every day, my mind is always running. I don't sleep, and because you're so focused on, what am I doing wrong?
Mm.
What did I not deliver here? How can I better my life here? How can I better serve here? You know, and it's all things that, for you personally, either you're feeling unappreciated or something is missing, or there's a shift somewhere, or someone, something happened that just switched you up completely.
Mm.
For one, I'm having PTSD and anxiety of being employed. I can't do that because I've had horrible experiences with employment. I've been a number one too many times, né? And now I'm just trying to really recollect and start from zero. But in that, you have this fear of, I'm going to disappoint this one. I'm going to, mess up this. I don't want to. And now you're staying for the sake of other people, not for the sake of your happiness.
That is a dangerous place to be in. That is a very dangerous place. I had to learn this as well. That is a very, very dangerous place to be in, because that's when cracks of depression can start seeping in, because you're not living your life based on what your expectations of what your definition of life is.
Yes.
Before I continue, the one thing I normally tell people is that the first thing you need to do, you need to define what your life should be first. Not what your mother thinks, not what your pastor or your sister. You need to define what a full life is for you. Then you pursue that definition wholeheartedly. And by pursuing that, you might disappoint people who are close to you, but at the end of the day, if they love you, eventually they will look beyond that. But if they don't have your best interests at heart, they will literally hinder that progression. So you live life, number one, you cannot give from an empty cup. You understand? So if this mug is empty, and if you want me to give you, I can give you the mug, but the contents of it are empty. People look at the aesthetic of the mug, meaning they look at this, they look at, okay, this guy has this, but they do not look at the contents. The contents literally determine the use of the mug. So if literally there's no content, there's no substance, this is useless, meaning you become useless. If I take it to a human experience, if the contents of you are not in here, you become useless. You end up floundering in life and you become a zombie. And for me, that is
resisting. While he drinks his coffee, please check if that thing is still recording. We ain't trying to lose some important content here. Beautiful.
It's you need to, the minute you live your life based on other people's expectations, I always tell people, those expectations, number one, they want to crush you, and number two, you will never fulfill them. So that's why it's important to create your own.
Sure. It's tough, and the thing is, we're aware of it. It's just that you still, in the process of wanting to put yourself above everybody else, you're still struggling to move them lower, because you're considering, you're thinking of other people's feelings over yours, and that is sad and that is painful. So I'm in this process of really learning to put myself first, one step at a time, as hard as it is. But that's where, as well, I'm not confrontational as well, because I'm just like, I kind of fume a bit.
Sorry to interrupt, when are we here? So that's when I can tie that previous question you had to how religion can actually shape you.
Yes.
Literally, you are taught to give more than you receive. But people literally forget that giving and receiving is parallel. You cannot have one without the other. If you use a phone, ultimately that phone needs to be charged. So if you are using that phone and you're not charging, meaning you're losing power, you can do the same with a human being. So if you're literally giving off of yourself to other people, but your cup
And
is
not
not filled and you're
recharging.
not being recharged, you're going to end up running dry. We are taught that in that context of religion, that give and you shall receive, but they don't tell you to receive. They don't teach you to receive.
In that receiving, I don't want to fill your own cup. It's like you have to do it yourself.
No.
Because for me, it's hard to receive. Like if you offer me something or whatever, I feel like I have to pay for it or have to, it's hard to receive, but I can freely give you until my bank account is at zero.
And that is a problem. We are taught to give, we're not taught to receive. And the masters of this world have actually deceptively allowed it to be so that they can continue receiving. When you're giving, you are giving, you are giving.
And they take.
And they will take us take. Take us will forever take. So you need to be mindful of the fact that at some point you also need to receive. And how do you do that? I'm glad that you actually brought that up. How do you do that? You literally look at yourself. Number one, you look at your spiritual essence as to, am I being spiritually fed? Number two, you look at your physical essence. Is my body well taken care of? What does my body need? You do a needs analysis of, even finances, you do that. You do it financially, spiritually, emotionally, and relationally. So then you begin to construct and build your life. Then you will start from there. It's very important. It's very important to receive. It's a homonati. It's nice being.
And then people are willing to give. Hey,
I was
like that.
Literally, I'm like that as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I was reminded by somebody to say, "Hold up, you forever giving. When are you receiving?" Allow. Literally, I hurt myself. And now, like, she was like, "Come on, isn't that?" I'm like, I'm like, no, relax, boy, relax.
Always running, always rushing to something else.
Allow me to take care of you. Like,
what is this?
Like, everybody, take care of me.
What is this?
So it felt good. In that moment, I realized, Inja, you need to be able to receive as well. You cannot be running on empty. Literally, it's life lessons you literally see when you drive it. A car needs to always be filled with petrol in order to move. If you do not fill it with petrol, it becomes useless.
True. And in that as well, it's learning to ask, because also you can't receive if the next person doesn't know you need.
Exactly.
You know, so
that is difficult. Again, we are taught to give, but when you are in need, because people confuse need with weakness, right? And there's a difference. When you need. There's nothing you can do about it. You need. I need this.
There's nothing else you can do.
I need this. So literally, when you have to ask, you literally think that instead of realizing that
it's okay.
It's okay.
So my friends tell me this a lot, and this is the difference between Lee and I. Lee, if she's in need, she'll ask. She's, we're on the phone with my mom yesterday. Oh, your sister asked. I'm like, me, I'm just gonna sit here until whenever. It's like, no, I'm like, so that's the difference between her and I. I don't know if it's a pride thing, and even this morning, I had a very emotional morning, and where a friend asked, Rory, why didn't you ask? And I'm like, at times you don't want to feel like you're a burden. You don't want to feel like you always have to be saved, It gets tiring, and not the next person. I'm not saying it gets tiring for you, but it gets tiring for me, And you don't put yourself in that situation. It's life situations. You just put so much pressure on yourself to be able to do everything yourself, and that is unrealistic. There's a reason why certain people have been placed in our lives to help us. Why is it okay for me to feel like I can constantly help here? A text, a phone call, whatever you ask for, I'm there.
Facts.
It's done. But when I have to ask for it,
becomes a mission, right?
I'm just like, oh no, babes, I'll sit here. It's okay.
Becomes a mission.
I'll sit here until I'm provided for next week or whatever.
Becomes a mission, right? I was when Sylvia died. I was literally going to shaky. Let me not even say that.
Man, yes.
His death hit me so hard because I'm so used to comforting people and giving advice and filling people's cups that it was my time to
Be comforted.
and my cup to actually be filled. And ironically, what hit me the hardest about his passing is that he was the person who was doing that for me.
Shit.
So outside of him, I didn't know because he would understand. I don't know how he'd sense, but he would know that, man, this guy would call me Papa. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? That immediately would, Papa,
Mood change.
you are Achilles. Do you know God? When you look in the mirror, you are God himself. So when somebody like that passes on and you're at a place whereby you need what he
That
used to
comfort.
give you, that comfort, feeling that cup, it became very difficult. Now, I never asked for it, he
Yeah.
would sense. So I needed to get to a place whereby I allowed myself to be vulnerable and start to ask for that, because now even my own
Because
mother,
that support system is now gone.
even my own mother be like, hey, man, you like carrying that glass and getting, but I am here for you, but you hardly
You hardly say
express,
anything.
because I never knew how to, because that was always been my role to be there for other people, but I never got to discover that I also need to be there for myself and I need to allow people to be there for me as well. So when he passed on, it clearly opened that door to say, okay, Nja, in this department, yes, you have other boys and other friends who are very close who fill their roles. But in this part, the person who filled this role passed on. And at a point, I felt weak with myself. I was actually disappointed with myself. That actually hurt me even more. Be like, hey man, you're so used to being there for other people. How can it that you aren't there for yourself? Where's that wrong? So I had to learn to say, okay, Nja, I get sharp, and I need people to be there. So I started actually talking. And obviously, luckily for me, the one flex I always tell people is that I have great relationships. If you were to ask me what is my number one blessing in life, I will tell them the quality of relationships that I have. Because as you know, 20 years strong, you understand. So easy. So for me, opening up to people that like that, it's easy for me because you understand not a lot of people have those support structures, but they can be there, but if you do not ask, you do not know if you will receive.
Exactly.
Literally the Bible says, knock and you shall knock and the door shall be opened.
Yeah.
Ask and you shall receive. So I began to ask.
And you know what I appreciate about our friendship, right? And a lot of friendships I have is that we don't talk every day. We have a group, we talk individually, WhatsApp status or whatever, we don't talk every day. But when we do,
yes, ma'am,
it always, even if we skip a year, it always feels like we just spoke the other day.
Yes, ma'am.
And for me, that is the most important thing in a friendship, where I won't say, how you've been quiet for however long. Oh, okay, what's wrong? Are we still good? Like, but you understand the roles that we play in each other's lives. When we had the Shorts wedding, majority of us had not seen each other in a long time. But the moment we all got together, it was just like, hello, we've been together every day.
What up, though?
What up, though?
What up, though?
That's it.
That was nice.
And you guys are my brothers for life. We don't talk every day. The group is there, whatever. It's quiet. Especially now, CB gone, because he was the one we were always going at every time in the group.
Shake.
It's quiet. It's there, but we all know when to reach out to each other. We all know when we talk, there's purpose. And or whatever the case is. I'm not gonna fight you because I'll tell you, you're coming to me in 2 months though. Like what's going on? What's going on? First right here, we don't talk as often, or we don't see each other as often, but when we do, it's the same as So I appreciate that a lot.
No, I really appreciate you too, man. Legit. Like I said, I love people.
Yeah.
And I love genuine people. And you and Lee are the most genuine people I've ever met in my life. So you don't throw away relationships like that. Even if there will be disagreements, you make sure that you mend those relationships. One thing I think it's TD Jakes or Pastor Miles, I'm not too sure. I could be quoting out of context, but he says that people throw away destiny relationships because of emotional issues that could be resolved. So I take my relationships seriously in that context. I do not just throw away relationships. That's why most of my relationships, Most most of my relationships are at the level that they are because I value them. I value people. I am nothing without people, literally. As much as we are pushed to be individuals, because if you are operating in the context of the wilderness that is the world right now, and if you're an individual, the wilderness will swallow you whole. That's why if you look at lions have their own clique.
Yeah.
Hyenas have their own clique.
Yeah.
Buffaloes have their own clique. So that will literally tell you that in life you need your clique. Simple. Now, if you operating at a level of individuality, squares and doubles.
Individuality. Yes.
Then doubles. English bundles are going.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're working from a point whereby you're an individual, now it's dangerous for you. Because it's easier to take you out, and I'm not saying in a bad way, but it's easier to mislead you. It's easier.
You become isolated.
It's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah. Sure, Tito, man. I don't know how powerful this was going to be. You know, you're crying and shit.
My bad.
Okay, so judgment, forgiveness, and love. From a religious standpoint, do you feel we judge harshly? And when I say we, I'm not even saying specifically us, but let's say in human form from a religious standpoint, do we judge harshly, forgive partially, and love half-heartedly?
Hell yeah. You can meet it. It's easy. It's easier to point at other people's mistakes rather than looking at your own. So it's easy to judge how demand why it's so bad without even actually understanding
why
the context. I was actually I had an argument with a friend. He was talking about him and why is this guy doing driving from a judgmental standpoint. I'm like, do you know what that guy is going through? Did you literally sit down with that guy and go through the root trauma of why he's doing the drugs that he's doing? And her answer was no. I was like, do you now understand why I had an argument with you? How can you literally talk about it in order to get understanding? How can you talk about something you do not know?
You don't even bother to find out.
And secondly, you do not know that person. And it's for me, it's always ironic that those that don't know you have the most to say about you. So you do not know that person. You see what he allows you to see. In fact, when a person allows you to see the dirt about himself, meaning that he doesn't care anymore, he's going through things. So if you cannot empathize or try and get to the root cause of it, rather blanket him with love. Literally, one of Noah's sons got cursed because he didn't cover his dad. He exposed his dad's weakness, his nakedness, and he got cursed because of that. So literally, love is supposed to blanket all the weaknesses and make sure that the strengths shine. Even when you're going through your pits, when you're going through your troubles, love covers a multitude of sins. When people think about that, they think, sin can be bad. It can be.
They don't dissect it further.
It can be that you're going through things, and I need to understand the context of the environment and situation that you are currently. And obviously, that will make you react in a certain way that it would not normally be you. So you need to. We talk about love, we talk about these beautiful things, but these are things that you constantly need to practice. And by the way, love is a choice. It's a decision you make. I mean, your parents love you, but they decided to love you because
what am I going to do?
What you love? I get a choice. I need to love this little rascal. What I do love. So people obviously judge what they don't understand. And it's sad if you do not understand. So you look at Nas literally in Hate Me Now, if I'm paraphrasing, said people hate what they don't understand and fear what they can't conquer.
No.
So you literally hate what you don't understand. You don't understand it, therefore
you'll judge it. You'll hate it.
That's why I tell people racism won't die, because we are not at a place where we are willing to actually understand different races. It's my race and that's it.
You're defending?
And literally, when I take it in that context and use the scriptures that broad is the road that leads to destruction and narrow is the road that leads to life, you can apply it to your love, to love as well. Very few people love, genuinely. Very few. Very few. Broad people will claim that they love, but they're on that road to destruction. If a scandal comes out about you, instead of actually finding out, they will feed that scandal.
People coming to ask you first.
One of the few things that broke me It was actually the nail on the head that allowed me not delete it, but stay off the
Stay off
platform
it,
for a
yeah.
while. Was that you remember there was a video trending where this racist guy killed the black dude in front of his daughter.
When was this?
I think last year or 2 years ago.
Oh,
I still have that video.
yeah,
by the
I
way.
would know. I would want to
Oh.
see it.
I think I still do.
Yeah.
People were then Black Coffee's marital
Issues came out
came about. People literally left that and they focused on that.
as if this is far more important than what we're dealing with right now. That's why what the cancel culture is not real.
You
It doesn't
understand?
exist. We
You
jump to the
understand?
next thing very quickly.
You understand where I'm going with this?
Sure.
For me,
Yeah.
you understand where I'm going with. People will claim to love, even on social media, they will claim to be outraged.
But do one thing
But-
and then
Very few people are actually outraged and they do something about it. As I say, broad is the road that leads to destruction. Narrow
very
that
few,
leads
yeah.
the road, narrow the, yeah.
That one.
That one. Safari. Narrow is the road that leads to life. Safari. That one just that.
Please recharge.
Recharging.
That is so. How do we? And I see right now, especially from 2020, we're big on mental health. We're big on self-care. We're big on healing. We're big on identifying our traumas and triggers and working through them and whatnot. And that's like on an individual standpoint. But collectively, are we ever going to get out of this massive chaos that we're in of cancel culture, of GBV, of racism, and like
This has become content. On the bigger scale, it's just content on social media that is put out.
yeah.
It doesn't have, it's for the aesthetic, the retweets, the likes, and the certain awareness. But most people do not intentionally. And when I mean intentionally, they do not go out of their way to make sure that mental health is addressed, GBV is addressed, cancel culture. What is the root of cancel
Yeah.
culture? Why do you want to suppress my freedom of speech? I'm entitled to an informed opinion, not an opinion, but an informed opinion.
Yeah.
That's where if you have a disagreement, literally iron sharpens iron. You can show me your perspective.
Respectfully.
I come with my perspective, and we sit down and we engage. We do not become disrespectful to one another, but we engage. So it's become content more than anything else.
Who knows better than the other? Who can say more than?
And
How can I shut you down?
It's saddening.
Yeah.
It's how can certain things like that become content? It's content. I post there, I know I'm gonna get 1,000 retweets. But when you look at the person who retweeting that, if you were to ask them, okay, outside of the platform, what have you done?
About what you retweeted.
Dollar.
But I tweeted. Someone saw it. Okay.
Dollar. It's become content more than anything else. The substance, hence I say people are so focused on the aesthetic of things, they forget the substance. And the substance is the most important. I mean, empty vessels make the most noise.
He just went there.
I'm serious though.
That is very
Content
true.
that have substance, if you bang it, they don't make
They
noise.
don't make noise.
But their purpose are fulfilled. But vessels that are empty, when you bang it, they are and in most cases, people think that those who make noise are the ones who are actually adding substance. And you might find that it's not true.
Not true.
Yes, their purpose might be there, they might bring awareness, but that's where the people with substance need to take over. And unfortunately, people do not want to do that because now we are afraid of accountability. It's very easy to say, who do this for me? Instead of, okay, let me take initiative. Let me do it.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, people now are afraid of the backlash that might just happen. Yeah. Coffee break.
Yo,
Coffee break.
that is.
Coffee break.
That is some.
Lee made some good cappuccino. Just saying.
That's some great information to really digest and take in, and also it starts with individuals. It starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with, you need to do something in order for the masses to do something, you know. And last week I had my friend Anthony, and he asked like, "Yo man, why you have people actually telling their business and shit?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not bringing people here to expose their business. I'm creating a platform that is not only beneficial for me and it's not part of my healing, but it's beneficial for the next person, the people that are watching. And for one, I'm not doing it for the numbers.
That's why I'm here.
I'm not doing it for the numbers. My numbers are below 100. I couldn't care less. It's that select few that watch every episode and take what they take from it, that they resonate with it. I get feedback, not on the comment section, not in the comment section, but privately, with people like, "Oh my God, it's about time. We need more conversations like this. Oh, I resonated with this because 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that is the whole point.
Exactly.
Somebody else can start the same platform, and like, you know, even before I started, I was like, there's so many podcasts about healing, and why should I, you know, you're already trying to discount yourself out of it. Our content is not the same. Our purpose is not the same.
Facts.
And our audience is not the same.
Facts.
We don't all reach the same people.
Preach.
You know, so in me doing that, I had to literally encourage myself to keep pushing and listen to my spirit as well, because certain times when I started, I had a whole 10 of who I want to start with. Half of them have been removed because I'm just like, that's not yet, or that is not the right conversation now, you know. And it's just allowing yourself to be guided spiritually. It's just allowing yourself, or you knowing what your purpose is, and as a vessel, you know what you're being used for, or if you're just making noise, or you know.
Well, that's true, and I'm proud of you for taking that initiative.
Thank you.
I normally, what did you work hard, you know?
And we were talking for a whole hour before we started this thing.
I always have something to say, but I literally told people that when we had our first event in Bloom 3 weeks ago.
Rooted.
Yeah.
That's dope.
And we share, one thing I shared was that there's power in trying. So for you to actually take that first step and try this podcast, literally open you up for a lot of possibilities that you might not know that you really
not aware of.
But there's power in trying.
Exactly. You're not aware.
So when you try, literally, when I relate it back to my days when I used to dance, and I get right from fun.
G1G,
when you try that particular stunt or dance move, the first time you do it, it didn't pull off. The second time it didn't pull off. The third time it didn't pull off. But as you go again and again and again, there's a switch that normally happens. I can't explain that switch, but there's always a switch that happens that when you get it the first time, you're like, got you.
There we go.
And you continue to do it. That's what trying does. You will get that switch.
Oh, I appreciate that.
You will get that switch. And that's why I wanted to be able to follow the person. And I was like,
put me on!
I
think after the second or third episode, after my first guest, the third episode, he's like, dog, I need to be on there. Done. I need to be on there.
It's simple.
And I appreciate that so much, and I appreciate the support and the feedback I'm getting from people. More importantly, so one of my friends said the other day, he's like, how the hell are you going to be doing this for? So the way he phrased it, I was like, oh, what do you mean? Should I stop? He's like, no. I'm just saying it in a sense that you're on the right path. Yes. And this could go and become something big. Yes. And for me, I started it as a way of feeding into what I've always wanted to do. Yes. Like I said, I love to serve, but my purpose of serving has kind of changed. It has kind of changed and it's been clouded. So I'm learning to serve me more. You know? And
I like that. That's a quotable.
I'm learning to serve me more. And that's the thing that we fail to do or struggle with as human beings. You keep saying, I don't know if this even relates. We say, I'm enough. What defines you being enough? Facts. Are you serving yourself in your enoughness? Facts. Or are you enough in the sense that I can do this and this and this for you and I'll still be good? I can't, you know? So this is helping me to do that. And in the process of that, this could potentially get me to where I needed to be or what my goals, the goals I've set, you know, it can help with that. But anyway, it's neither here or there. Thank you. In a nutshell, let us continue and about to close this.
No problem.
So, in the previous question of, what did I say? Hey, you're very low, busy. Or judgment, forgiveness, and love. In a nutshell with that, I just wanted to say that we kind of forget that we're human beings. you know. We forget that this thing, you double progress still. And we're just like, and that's one thing I see a lot of Christian people do. There's a lot of debates about what the Bible says online.
You know, when it comes to debates and everything like that, one thing I I decided to do is that you do not partake in debates that you debate for the sake of debating, and they are not meaning, they don't add any value to your life. Most people want to be heard, but they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
So they become endless. So what I decided to do was, let me take this book, whatever, let me take this piece of information and let me do the due diligence. Because the world is heading that way. It's, in fact, it is there.
It's there.
It's there. You need to do your due diligence and see, okay, what does this say? On Dax on Dear God, he mentions quite a few issues that he raises, that when we discovered that people were lying until he read the book for himself. You discover certain truths when you actually
when you study it. Yeah, when you study it, and it just all depends on how you translate it.
Facts.
You know?
Context is everything.
It's everything. I have a friend who he was deep in the church at some point, and now he identifies as atheist. And so I'm like, why not? What is it? Agnostic.
Yeah.
Agnostic.
Yeah.
Why not that? He's like, no, full on atheist. Because with him, he feels, and he said he was like deep church boy, and he studied it, and he's like, later I realized that the Bible is against human. The Bible is this, da 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 da. So for me, how I saw it, and once again, it's an opinion based on conversations had with this particular person, whatnot. It's just a case of similar to what pastors do. We focus more on the positive and neglect the certain issues and faults, our little blunders in there, to put them on and say, if this should happen, God is not going to shun you, but this is how you can, kind of get back to him. He was just like, forget everything else. The Bible is against this, your God is against this and this and this and this and that. So, and he's not the first person or last one. So it's just like, what is happening? What are you discovering? Where is that switch that makes you now be completely against it?
I think he'll be the one who'll be able to answer that question much more appropriately. But the pattern is there. Like you mentioned, he's not the first. And the pattern is that most cases, it's always the ones that are
deeper than the rest of us. Deeper than the rest of us.
And when they discover certain things, which is, our journeys are different. Individually, our journeys are different. And one thing I've learned to do is that I've learned to understand people's journeys and not try to impose my beliefs or my journey onto them, because I might just push them away. So hence, I emphasized earlier when we started that love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Your neighbor is someone who might just disagree with you, with your beliefs and your opinions. It's not necessarily I must love them less.
Yeah.
That's one thing I discovered earlier in my Christian walk. In fact, I don't like using that label, because I feel as if when you use that label, you put yourself in a box. You don't allow yourself to grow and understand the world in and around you. And I think back in the day, most likely when Jesus would have hated that title, because now the people who are religious, in fact, in that back in the day, they hated him, they despised him.
His own people. Yeah.
Case in point, they nailed that nigga to the cross.
His own people.
Uncle TV.
Yeah.
So you understand that you need to, for yourself, you need to make sure that you love your neighbor as you love yourself. Simple.
Hectic. We're about to close. I just want to ask you this question. What does the word repentance mean to you?
Change of mindset, change of paradigm.
I have a fear of that word because of how we heard it in the church, how it was used, how every Sunday you have to repent. It's heavy.
No, it's misunderstood. But if you literally look at it, what is to repent? You change your perspective.
Change your perspective, yeah. Just to ask for forgiveness.
But it's misunderstood. It's used as a weapon to chastise people, and the people being chastised, they don't know why I need to repent.
You're doing it because you're told.
You are told, why do I need to repent? Literally, repentance could be literally changing your perspective on a certain issue. you read the scripture and you find, oh, I thought it was interpreted this way, then your paradigm changes. So people misunderstood, but it's lack of teaching, I would say, and lack of personal investigation. You understand? So people,
you teach what you were taught.
exactly, you rely on the message that the preacher is giving you. Hence, I say every person and every word that person says, you need to put them under a self-weight. So you investigate it. You put in your own thing. You do not rely on your mother, your pastor. Yes, their teachings can form a foundation, but continue. In order for you to evolve, you need to still gather much more information and put those teachings to the test.
True.
Legit. That's how you grow as an individual. You see, okay, this was wrong. This is okay. This. And one thing I love about our generation is that our generation is a generation of why.
Yeah. You ask.
We ask. We question. Not because of we are unruly or we are disrespectful.
You need to understand.
Our generation wants understanding because we are born from a generation of information. And with us, normally, if you can provide the why, the transition is easier for me. Oh, I understand why I need to do this. But if you cannot relay as to why I need to do this, that's when you hit a ceiling with us and we are at impasse.
Yeah.
And we clash. We say, meanwhile, you mean well, but you cannot explain as to why I need to do it. And even in fact, that why can open up a conversation to say, I don't see it like that. I see it like this. And maybe you can even better the instruction that was given.
Wait,
My dog.
Hectic. Okay, we're about to close. Last few questions, this or that. I think I'm going to call the segment this or that. Last time I said verses. I don't want to do verses. This or that. Passenger or driver?
Driver.
Driver. Train or airplane?
Airplane.
Flight mode. Yeah. Owe money or owe a favor?
To repeat.
Owe money?
Owe money?
Yeah, or owe a favor.
Oh, a favor. Money,
and especially with friendships, it becomes so hectic.
It becomes unpleasant.
Yeah, wine or beer?
Wine.
Really?
I'm joking.
Hey, mana.
I wanted to see that response.
I'm like,
I wanted to flare against you.
what is this?
No beer, man.
Yeah. Cooking or being cooked for?
Being cooked for.
Typical.
Cooked for.
Last one, ambition or comfort?
Ambition.
100%.
Ambition.
That's just these.
But I would say all those questions will determine on the context. But for the sake of this context, that's the one. That's the one.
Thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure.
I appreciate you, dog.
My pleasure. I appreciate you too for having me here.
Yes, making time for contributing. The stuff you've said is like, I become nervous with every episode. I'm like, oh my God, how's this one gonna flow? How am I gonna ask these questions? And then the moment you sit and you start, it just becomes perfected. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. I hope you have subscribed, liked, and you comment. I'm learning! I'm doing this thing! Come on! I would like to see more comments from you guys. Please don't send it separately in my DMs, in my WhatsApp, whatnot. Put it down here so people can see and engage further. I appreciate depletion of English. It's time to go. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in every week and consuming this content and the feedback you've given. Have a lovely week and God bless.
God bless.